Hello and welcome to Real Talk, Real Women, the podcast that was designed to equip, inspire, motivate, and empower the woman, her life, and her business as you redefine, rediscover, and reintroduce the new you unapologetically. Now, here are your hosts, Martha Cooper-Hudson and Adrian Johnson.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, my awesome and amazing sisters and a few good men who's listening to our show today. My name is Martha Cooper-Hudson, your extractor of purpose, your comeback coach, and I want to welcome you to Real Talk, Real Women, the podcast that was designed and created to equip, inspire, motivate, and empower the woman, her life, and her business. If anyone, and I do mean anyone, if any of you all see my hot sauce to my fish, my peanut butter to this jelly, and my Gail to this Oprah, my co-host, Adrian M. Johnson, please tell her I'm looking for her. And in this day and time, I'm looking for her with a flashlight during the daytime because I miss her. And I feel as if a part of me is missing because she's not in the studios with me today. But today, we will continue our journey. We will continue that journey to shine even more light on domestic violence and allow you to see, ladies and gentlemen, the faces of women whom you would probably say, no, not her, because she really doesn't look like what she's been through. But on the show today, we will take a journey with a twist. This twist will leave you saying two words, but God. I have the pleasure of having in the studios with me today a woman whom I truly respect and admire. Her story will move you as it moved me some 8 years ago. It shook the very core of who I was. And we'll be covering it all today on our show that we decided to title, He Thought He Killed Me, But God. October is Breast Cancer Awareness and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And as serious as they both are, we have decided on this platform to shine a brighter light on domestic violence. The statistics continues to rise on the number of domestic violence victims that continues to lose their lives every day at the hands of their abusers. Over 4 million women in the U.S. has experienced physical violence by the hands of their intimate partner, and that happens every year. Every year, 2 million injuries and 1,300 deaths are caused as a result of domestic violence. And get this, ladies and gentlemen, 3 women are murdered every day by an intimate partner. And here in Charlotte, North Carolina, in 2019, out of the 89 homicides that have happened this year, 25 were women who died at the hands of their abusers. See, domestic violence can negatively impact a woman's mental and physical health over a long term, and her children's mental health and well-being are at risk to be damaged for long term. But ladies, domestic violence is not just physical. Abuse can also be sexual, psychological, emotional, and or financial. And in this day of our digital era, digital abuse and stalking also counts. So I tell you, I am so honored to have the CEO and founder of Haynes Healing Heart, which is a nonprofit foundation that helps both men and women who are survivors of domestic violence. But this awesome woman is a mother. She's a minister. She's a wife, and she's the wife and multi-millionaire business partner to the iBoomerang Global Master Ambassador, Mr. Edwin Haynes. But I want you to brace yourself for impact and prepare to never be the same. You are truly about to encounter the amazing, the beautiful, the phenomenal Andrea Haynes. Andrea, come on in and say hello to our listeners this morning.
Hello, everybody. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Martha, for the opportunity to be able to share my story and to be able to bring a little bit of more light on something that is so very dear to my heart, domestic violence. And so I am excited about the call, and I am looking forward to sharing my experience and just the how-tos, how to get out, and just be just a beacon of light for those who are listening.
Wow, I am so excited to have you here because not only is your integrity, but your character and your reputation is one that touches my heart every time I get the opportunity to be in your presence and to speak with you, not only on this topic, but just on topics in general in life. And so I am so excited to have you here with me today so that we can impact the thousands of listeners out there who think that there is no way out. And we are here to truly share with them that there is a way out. And at the end of that darkness, that there is light that's waiting to shine so bright on them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started here in our show today. But Andrea, what I want you to do is let's take a journey back in time to your childhood when you were that little girl with those pigtails and braids and playing jump rope and hide and go seek in Greenville, Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we're going to go all the way back. We're going to go back to that childhood, when life was grand, when as a child, we're not supposed to have any issues and any problems because we're living our lives as children. But I want to ask you, what behaviors and or characteristics did you witness in your life as a child, whether it was from your parents, your family, and or your environment, that may have shown and or taught you that domestic violence and abuse against women was okay or not okay?
Wow, it's interesting that you should bring up that point and want to go all the way back to my childhood, because that's kind of where I start when I'm coaching and mentoring individuals who have experienced or are currently experiencing something as traumatic as this, as domestic violence. I can remember growing up. My parents divorced when I was about 6 years old. And so after that time, everybody knows that divorces can be hard. And
Right.
that one was very hard because once the other parent is out of the home, it's kind of hard to keep up with the scheduling and be in the kids' life as you should. And so I missed out on that a lot as a kid. My mom was a very, very strong-willed woman, and I just thank God for her because she was the most amazing mother and raised us pretty much, me and my sister, as a single mother in a single parent home.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember vividly the exact same thing that I experienced in this situation. As we get into the call, we'll talk about a little bit about my story more.
Right.
But the exact same thing happened to me had already happened to another family member.
Wow.
I didn't realize that those things that happen, and because of our environment, they shape and form our viewpoint on life and relationships.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize that until later on, but I had a cousin who I love dearly, who I considered like an aunt. It was more like an aunt to me. But her husband at the time ended up shooting her in the head, and he committed suicide.
Wow.
So my situation was just a repeat of what my family had experienced, several years ago. She survived and, and was able to move on with life and remarry and all of that. But eventually, I think that experience caught up with her in a way at a different place in life when she reached another low point. It was just all compiled and, it kind of spiraled out of control. But I thank God, that at this point in her life, she's back on the right track. But
Absolutely.
It did take her down a different path and a different road, than obviously it did me.
Wow. And I went back into childhood because usually it starts there. And I always tell people that when you start to see the leak, that doesn't mean that the leak started there. The leak started way back in our childhood. And sometimes those are things that we've witnessed and as a child experienced. And because of what you witnessed in your home, in your environment as a child, how do you think it impacted your relationships with men moving forward? If you can elaborate on that a little bit.
It impacted it greatly because of that I'm speaking of. She was beautiful. She was smart, very intelligent, and had everything in the world going for her, as most of my aunts, pretty much did. My aunts were raised also in a single family home. So they are strong women. The kind of, we don't take any mess off of men kind of women.
Absolutely.
And so being exposed to that, it does one of two things for you. You either become it or, you're going to become the victim.
That's right.
So one or the other. And every now and then you find that one or two in the family that may not just have that type of a strength. So in seeing that, not having a father around, it made me feel like I had to be my own best friend. I had to be my own strength. I had to be my own everything, even though my mom was there. My mom was a strong woman, but at the same time, there were some things that I felt that she should have been a little stronger in, even as it pertains to, the divorce and my father and all of that, because she never remarried after that.
Okay.
So I didn't want my life to end up like that. I knew that she left for the right reasons, but I thought that she should have still moved on with her life instead of her life being consumed with just us.
Absolutely.
So I was on this mission not to be anybody that was in my family. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have a committed marriage. I wanted to have kids. I wanted the perfect life, if there is such a thing.
Absolutely.
Because we think of that, the big house, the white picket fence, everything is grand. And so I was in search of that. But being in search of that, it's kind of hard for you to have that when your vision has been warped because, number one, I had daddy issues.
That's right.
So I'm looking for somebody to save me, but I'm looking in all the wrong places.
That's right.
So I found myself in the wrong place with the wrong people and attracted to the wrong type of guys because you're absolutely correct. The leak just didn't start when I recognized the leak.
That's right.
The leak had happened already in previous relationships from actually high school.
Wow.
High school, I had a situation but in high school, you think because somebody talks to you ugly and says ugly things to you and degrades you, just because you can speak back and speak their language, it doesn't take away the fact that seed was planted.
That's exactly right.
So that seed of verbal abuse was planted then. And then it escalated in one of the relationships I had where I actually did have a high school boyfriend to actually physically harm me. It was one hit because I left after that. But that one hit, again, that was another seed that was planted.
That's right.
A seed of approval that to me that said that, okay, that happened. There is nothing I need to process about that. Get out of the relationship and move on. But I should have processed that so that I wouldn't have kept repeating the same cycle as I grew and continued in other relationships. So that's what happened. And it's a cycle that when you think back that we all have gone through for those of us who have experienced it.
That's right.
Because until you deal with the situation, it's still there, even though it's not on the forefront of your mind. It's almost like, this is what I tell women, it's almost like once you've experienced this, if you don't get the necessary help
Mm-hmm.
to help you process what happened. It's almost like you got a stamp on your back or on your forehead
That's
that
right.
says, abuse, I'm okay to be abused.
That's right. And you said something very pivotal and very key, because it becomes that revolving cycle that we tend to think is okay. And although,
Yes.
as you said, we can speak the language, because I can go toe to toe, I can go word for word, but we speak that language because when you were in high school and he was disrespecting you and speaking to you in those terms, and you felt as if, you know what, I can stand my own ground, I can say those very things back to you at that moment, although we may have recognized that that was the time for us to leave this relationship right then, it
Yes.
didn't happen until he actually physically put hands on you at that time. And although it happened that one time was one time too many, because those signs were there, because it was all in the verbal abuse that you were giving me. But I had witnessed that, and even in with my aunts and their relationships, I had witnessed
Yes.
that, and they stayed. So it was still okay. And since you were there in that high school era, Andrea, we have so many young ladies in high school that's being abused by their boyfriends. And,
Yes.
one of the conversations that I have with my daughter all the time, unless your friend is getting something off of your shoulder or
Mm-hmm.
opening a door for you, his hands should
Mm-hmm.
never, ever harm you. And the moment that his hands disrespects you is that very moment that you not only do you let your parents know, but you
Yes.
never enter into that place and space again. And so what would you say to those teens? Because I know that I have parents with teens that may be going through this very thing. What would you say, going back to that teenage Andrea, what would you say to a teen girl that's listening, that's saying, you know what? Yeah, my boyfriend, he may call me out of my name every now and again. He may call me the B word. He may curse me out every now and again. But you know what? He shows me that he loves me, and he's always buying me things or taking me places. But then he always disrespect me in that same manner. What would you say to those young ladies that may be caught right there before we move forward with your story?
I would say, baby girl, he's not worth your identity or your destiny. Get out of that relationship, whatever his issues is, whatever type of environment or family structure he grew up in, that is not your problem to solve. Tell your parent or a trusted adult so that they can get you the help that you need so you don't find yourself here again. Because the challenge is, we go through those things. Of course, it's embarrassing. Of course, we don't think much of it, because if you're out of the relationship, you think that it's solved, that that's the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, because those seeds have been planted. Those words that they said, they are attached to you.
That's
That
right.
is that whatever they did is in your spirit, and that carries on. So now you are attracting people like him. It's just a different name.
Mm-hmm.
So until we get to the root of it, why was I attracted to you in the first place? Because they didn't just become this person when we met them.
That's right.
They were already that person. So it was something that was in me that either ignored the sign or I didn't recognize the sign because it was normal for me. Normal behavior, as you said, because I grew up in an environment where, okay, those who were in relationships around me, they would argue, they would kind of fuss and fight about things. So that was normal. We all think that fussing and fighting is normal, when in actuality, it's not.
No.
Intelligent people can agree to disagree without raising their voices or using their hands.
That's right.
So when we're taught those things just by way of our environment and just by what we see. So no, don't you dare stay in a relationship with someone who wants to control you, who wants to determine who your friends are, who you can hang out with, what time you can hang out with them, and definitely not anyone who wants to verbally abuse you, because that's where it starts. It starts with the verbal abuse, and then it escalates. The more you allow, the more they're going to do. And the statistics on that for teenage girls is alarming. 1 in every 5 teenagers who is in a relationship will experience some form of either threatening or harm to them. That is alarming.
That
So,
is
you know,
very
for
alarming.
2020, absolutely. For 2020, and even before then, I've started to move in terms of age group. I'm
Yes,
moving backwards because the truth of the matter, it actually starts in middle school.
that's right.
But I'm even learning now I need to go back a little bit further and maybe start at 5th grade to just build their confidence and self-esteem so that they'll be able to recognize that by the time they do get to middle school or high school, they have enough
Yes.
confidence in them to be able to recognize when something is not right. Even if you can't put your finger on it, you can feel it.
Recognize it. That's
There's
exactly
knowing
right.
on the inside.
That's exactly right. And you know, I have chills sitting here in the studio because I'm thinking about those numbers, and I'm thinking about, you know, that 1 in 5. And in middle school, middle school, I was so busy playing jump rope and being in a band and having fun and living. And then in this day and time, you think about these middle school young ladies that have to deal with abuse from their boyfriends, their peers. And I'm saying to myself, wow, we had a pivotal moment that happened in our house over the weekend. My daughter went on her first date, and my Lord, my Lord. Woo. Oh, okay. I needed a whole bottle of wine. I called my mom. I said, Mom, I need some brown liquor. She started laughing. She said, baby, but you don't drink. I need the brown liquor because you told me that this day would come, right?
Yes.
And so she started laughing and she says, baby, you're too funny. And I said, but Mama, I said, I can remember because I used to think that you were crazy. I thought my mom, I still call her Crazy Mary. But I said, I used to think that you were crazy when, 1, you never smiled at the guy that came to take me out. 2, you always made him believe that you were a crazy mama. And although I knew that you were that you were not, but I also knew that you were that lion, that female lion that would protect us at any cost. And so I said, and I realized and recognized that because you were who you were, they never, whatever they thought they were going to try, the thing that came out of their mouth was, Miss Mary crazy. And whatever it was, I couldn't try that with, they called me by my middle name, Shinette. I couldn't try that with Shinette. So fast forward to my daughter. And although the young man she went out on a date with, I really do, he is such a gentleman. And I like that in him. And I even like the way that he approached my daughter. And because I've been sharing with her, our mantra is always a lady. And when you're always a lady, you will attract just who you are, not who you pretend to be. You will attract who you are. And so when he called and asked permission for him to take my precious baby out on a date, and he talked to my husband and he talked to me, I laid some rules down. And I asked him one thing. I said, son, do you understand the job of a female lion? And he thought about it and he said, yes, ma'am. I said, what is her job? And he said, to hunt and to kill. I said, can you repeat that again? He said, it's to hunt and to kill. I said, so I want you to know that I'm that female lion. And I will hunt you if anything remotely happened to my daughter. And so from that point, when he came to pick her up, her aunt was on FaceTime. Her uncle was on speakerphone. Her dad, we all were there letting him know that she has a tribe that will protect her. And when my daughter came home, she said to me, she said, Mom, why did you do that? And I said, because he will think 3, 4, 5, 6 times before he ever not only disrespect you as the young lady that you are, but before he ever try anything crazy with you. And so I love that, that you are even going back to 5th grade, because our young ladies, need to understand that they were fearfully and wonderfully made, and that
Yes.
they are a masterpiece, and that they are those princesses that's grown up to be queens that deserves to be treated with only the way that a queen should be treated. And
Yes.
so that I love, and I thank you for that, because more of that need to happen. So as we get ready to come back, I'm going to pause for the cause for a moment to speak about our sponsor. But when I come back, we're going to go deeper into your story, and we're going to share your truth on how you ended up walking in this purpose this day and time. So we're going to pause for the cause, and we'll be right back with you. So we will be back in 60 seconds as we pause for the cause and share our sponsor highlights for this episode of Real Talk, Real Women. This show is being sponsored by Chasing Purpose, LLC, and Tava Health and Wellness Company, where, ladies, you can lose 5 pounds in 5 days with our amazing one-day Kai Detox Tea, our Vita Energy Booster, and our Valet 30 liquid vitamins, which is your one shot in a cup that gives you 85 to 90% of all of your daily vitamins within 30 seconds of your consumptions. So, ladies, if you are looking to shed those pounds before the holiday season, if you're like me and you're looking to become fit, fine before you turn 50, then I challenge you to order your 30-day supply at chasingpurpose.tavalifestyle.com. Again, that's HTTP chasingpurpose.tavalifestyle.com. So make sure that you run over right now and be prepared for the holiday season. Now, I want to welcome back each and every one of our listeners as we continue our conversation in the studios on domestic violence with my guest, survivor Andrea Haynes, as she continues to share her truth. Now, Andrea, walk us through that final relationship, the one that gave you your purpose today. Take us back to the very first signs of abuse that you experienced with your ex that should have put some red flags up to you and said, you know what? No, it's time to go right now. Share that with our audience.
Wow. It as you know, it never begins the way that it ends.
Absolutely. That's good.
So in the beginning, it was, all glitz.
Yes.
Everything was going fine. Everything was well. But I do want to insert, I had previously been married, so I had already been divorced. It hadn't been that long before I started dating again.
Okay.
But just still in a place, what I recognize now is that it was really too soon for me to even be getting remarried, because there was some healing that needed to happen from the first marriage. That didn't happen, but I think I got all of that in the process to the second one, obviously.
Yes.
So here I am, trying to figure out life, and this guy, appears on the scene, who appears very nice. I knew some of his family because actually his sister was previously married to my dad's brother.
Gotcha.
And I mean, she was as sweet as she could be. So the family, from what I knew, were, they were decent people.
Right.
So here we are, we're in the marriage and everything is going great. He had some health challenges in the very beginning of the marriage. So he had about 2 to 3 major surgeries in that, because he used to be a drinker, an alcoholic.
Gotcha.
So he hadn't drank in several years, but of course his colon had been severely damaged, which unbeknownst to me at the time that we got married. So we ended up having to have his colon removed. So we had to go through that process, which was very life-changing, because I almost lost him in the beginning of the marriage due to one of the surgeries.
Wow.
There were some complications from there. So after we got through that, obviously we're closer than we were when we got married because we've already experienced this big storm at the beginning of the marriage. So everything was going fine. And all of a sudden, I woke up one day and I looked around and looked at my life, and not that anything was wrong. Everything was great. I was, my career was going in the direction that I wanted it to. I was at work for the U.S. Postal Service. I was in management. So that was going cool. We were buying rental properties to refurbish and to rent out. So we had things that were going, and it would appear that we were at our peak. And all of a sudden, it was something in me that said that it's more to life than this. This is not it. And I can remember having that feeling or that thought, but I didn't know why I had that. And so as I began to think back into the day that we got married, going to get married, there was no justice of the peace that was there when we went to get married. And mind you, I didn't tell anybody that I was going to get married.
Right.
I knew I was dating this person, but it was kind of a thing. He was like, why don't we just go get married today? And I'm thinking, it's great. The day, the wine is good. Everything is great. So let's do it. Well, when I got there, there was no one there to marry us. Okay, that was sign number one.
That was sign number one.
To rethink this.
Yeah,
okay?
God was like, girl. Yes.
Sign number two was when the clerk that was there said that there is a magistrate that just got out of the hospital. Now, mind you, Martha, I hate even telling this part of the story because anybody listening would know, okay, girl, that was a red flag all day long that you just missed. You just walked over it.
Yeah, you had angels in the corner waving flags, Andrea, like, hey, baby, no. I got you.
Yes. So here she is, and she tells us that the magistrate just got out of the hospital from having open heart surgery, but he's at home and he loves what he does. So his daughter is there taking care of him, who happens to be a nurse, and she can serve as a witness if you want to go by there.
By his
the
house.
magistrate only lives around the corner. So we go around the corner, literally just about 5 minutes away. And we get there. The man had just gotten home. He still had his oxygen thing around him, and all of the things kind of still hooked up to him so he could be at home. His daughter was going to take care of him there. He married us in his home. Okay?
Wow.
So all the while I'm thinking, when we're talking about red flags, and many of us do this, I thought, that's just the devil trying to my blessing.
Girl, he trying to stop us. And we're not going to let it. We are not going to let the devil win.
Exactly. Because he was a good guy. So here I am, and we're in the marriage, and everything is going good. We've had some challenges in terms of his health, but nothing personally within the marriage. And when one day, it was literally like I woke up and said, this is not my life. There is more. I didn't know what the more was. I didn't have any idea. I just knew that this wasn't it, and that I probably need to try to get out of this some type of way. So I began to, kind of have a discussion with him in a roundabout way about us, just kind of going our separate ways. Because when I met him, he was initially like in the street, and he was getting more and more out of that. He was becoming more and more legit. We were buying property, so he now had things that he could legitimately make money from, and things were going great. Absolutely. So it was a win-win in my eyes for both of us. And so I felt like, okay, we have both benefited from each other. We could just move on because this is not going in the direction that I wanted to. And I don't even know how to articulate that it's not.
Right.
And so I thought, because he was such a sweet and nice guy, never raised his voice. We never argued. It was just, really like almost like a fairy tale. So here I am having this conversation with him, and he just, kind of brushes it off. It's like, no, you don't mean that. It's just, you're just probably in a place in life you need to do something different, or work is stressful for you, but we'll talk about it later.
Right.
So later came a couple weeks later, and I brought the conversation back up. And he said, no, I don't think that that's what you really, you really want to do. You just need some time. Just give it some time. And I'm thinking, give it time? No, I'm ready. I'm really literally ready to pack up and leave today. So I began to think another crazy thought. You look at all of these red flags that go up. Once you're out of the situation, you can look back. So there was somebody else that started to come around where I worked all the time, and and just being overly friendly. Okay, I'm already in a place exiting door left. So the friendliness turned into conversations on the phone.
Gotcha.
So that conversation on the phone eventually got back to my husband. So that was the start of where the problems began.
Uh-huh.
Because now you're feeling like, okay, this is the person that I'm in covenant with, and
Right.
you are completely playing me for a fool because you think that I'm nice. It was that kind of a way. So I began to start seeing signs that, oh, he may not be so nice after all.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously, when you started talking and raising your voice, when you've never raised your voice, I didn't even know your voice to go that high, first of all. So here we are now. I'm in this already affair, and he's found out. So of course, when you find out about things, that ends, that's over. But the aftermath still goes on.
That's right.
So that aftermath from the affair is what escalated the abuse. So the more I convinced him that, that this is not going on anymore, the more he wasn't sure that it was.
Because at that point in time, it was messing with him mentally, physically,
yes.
and emotionally, that he could not, because you spoke with him in the beginning. You gave him your truth, and he continued to say, no, I don't think that's what you want. And then when this relationship came about with the person there at the post office, and he got whim of it, now he's saying to himself, probably in his mind, because we can't speak for him now, wow, I'm not good enough. I'm not.
Absolutely.
I'm not in physical shape. I'm not providing for her. So it's messing with all of these things that now opens up this box that you've never seen before, because who knows his insecurities of what he felt from his past, from his childhood. Who knows what he was dealing with at that time. So now you're saying you're starting to hear the voice escalate. I
hear the voice.
Yes.
Yes, it's escalating, and I get to learn now all about the childhood. The things, the stories that was left out.
Right.
Now I get to hear about how the mother and the father, his father was a disciplinarian. He was very strict and firm. So he didn't take any mess. So now I'm understanding, okay, you're trying to make a point. You're conveying some things to me now. There was a sister who was in an abusive marriage. I began to learn that, okay, everybody fights. That's normal for him. All of his brothers and their wives, they would fight each other. So what's the problem?
Wow.
Why is this such an issue for you? And especially when in his eyes, this is all your fault anyway. So this is your fault. So this is your punishment, basically. So you just need to deal with it until I feel like it's okay. So I'm here and I'm in this. I'm literally going through every single day, because it's not a day that goes by that he doesn't remind me of what I've done, how displeased he is, and how upsetting it is, and that we have all these great things going on, and you would do something like that. So we've still got to play this perfect couple role in front of everybody else, because I can dare have no one think that you would be unfaithful to me, because I'm not that kind of a guy that you can do that to. Wow. So everything just started escalating. It was just starting to really, really, really bad arguments, a lot of degrading things that he would say to me. And, I can bob and weave through a lot of things. I'm a tough girl. So that didn't really bother me initially.
Now,
but
did
for
you
someone
have...
to keep...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Now, at that point in time, did you have your daughters?
I did.
Okay.
They were very young at this particular time. And that was something that was ironic about the situation as well, because he loved them as if they were his own.
Okay.
And he would never want them to see him in that light. So anytime that there was an argument between us, they were never home. They were always at my mother's house or somewhere else, or at my grandmother's house. So he never allowed them to see that. So things just began to escalate, as they do, because once you allow someone to degrade you, once you allow that first hit, that is permission that I can continue to do this until I'm satisfied.
That's right.
And so basically that's how it escalated. So here I am, going to work on a stressful job every day. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that at this moment on that day, it was an interesting day that happened. We had gotten home. The girls had gotten home from school.
Okay.
And we were going home to do homework or whatever. I had been home long, and he came in because I think he had called me in the midst of me getting in the house and trying to get settled and get them settled, and I didn't answer the phone. So he immediately came home, just I guess to check to see if I was there.
Right.
And when he got there, he was in somewhat of a rage. So I don't know if somebody had said something or was it just his paranoia, because he was very paranoid during that time. And he came home and he was asking me, well, I called you, didn't answer the phone. Did you get the call when I called you at work when you were supposed to be on lunch? And I said, no, nobody told me to call. I said, but I've been at work all day. I actually didn't leave to go out like I would normally do to check on carriers or, have to run some errands, at the other office. And he began to pick a fight. And I had noticed that I think that had become a pattern for him to pick fights, because it had become a place where I wouldn't argue anymore. I wouldn't say anything back because I was just drained. I was exhausted.
Because it can mentally drain you, physically and emotionally. Yes.
All of that was me. I was just, walking dead, basically. I'm just a zombie. I'm just doing what I have to do by the routine, putting on a smile at work, acting as if everything is okay, but clearly it's not. So at this particular time, I was just like, I'm over this. Being quiet doesn't work. Saying things doesn't work. So let me just take my chances today that this is not the day. I don't want to do this arguing. The kids are here, so we don't need to do this arguing. And at that point, with me telling him, well, if you didn't, I don't remember what I said, but it was something sarcastic.
Right.
And he grabbed me by my neck to choke me. And he pushed me against the wall. And my oldest daughter came in and grabbed him around the leg and said, no, don't hurt my mommy. Don't hurt my mommy. And he let me go. And he left. And at that moment, I knew then I had a decision to make. It's either I'm going to die here or I can leave and take my chances of surviving. So that next day, I went ahead and got them ready for bed or whatever. And obviously he called back, and trying to make that situation right. But again, in making it right, blaming me again. So I don't know how that was an apology. But I went to bed, and I didn't really sleep well that night because, you go through that kind of stuff. The kids are seeing it. You're trying to make sure that they're okay.
Absolutely.
And I got up that morning, and I proceeded just like I normally do, get them ready for school. I'm going to work, and I didn't go back. I went to stay at my mom's after that. And I kind of had to go buy me a few more clothes, and then he would try to drop some off at my grandmother's house for me or whatever. And because none of them knew exactly what was going on, they just thought we were just going through a rough patch, because I didn't tell them any of that until way later. I had been at my mom's house probably about 6 months, and I think she started to notice that I didn't look the same anymore.
Right.
The smile is not really a smile anymore. You don't, your friends, you're not really answering their calls, and you're not doing the things that you used to do.
Right.
Yes. And work was very, very stressful at that time. So I didn't go back, and he would, obviously try to get me back and beg and plead and ask for forgiveness, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And so there was a series of things that happened before it escalated to where I'm about to go now, because there was a kidnapping in between that for the sake of time. And there were other threats that were made where my life was in jeopardy on 3 other occasions. And so finally, I just had enough, and I was getting ready to go on vacation in November. I always take the week of Thanksgiving off because that's the month of my birthday.
Let me ask you a question before you even move into that piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
During the kidnapping, during the threats on your life, was there ever a moment that you involved the police at any given time?
Not ever. When the police got involved, it was because when he kidnapped me, they could not reach me, and my sister knew that the only way, the chance of me surviving, was for her to call the police to get them to call his phone. So when she told them, we'll call his phone because he's not going to let her answer her phone. That's why she's not answering it. And so when they called his phone, he answered. And when he answered, they told him that we know that you have her. We know where your location is. We can pick you up by the satellite. So we're giving you 5 minutes to bring her back to her grandmother's house where we are. And so he began to explain to them that, no, I didn't kidnap her. She was off today, and I was just taking my wife to lunch.
Right.
She can vouch for me, but I am on my way to her grandmother's house. So we can clear all of this up when I get there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how is this going to work? Because now he has 2 guns that's on him, because literally he was planning to kill me and to throw me in a ditch or somewhere. So here I am. We get back to my grandmother's house, and the police, they are there. And I'll never forget the conversation that one of the officers had with me, because, of course, I collaborated his story that, no, we just went to lunch.
Absolutely.
So
like most women do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So he says, the officer says that, the next time you may not be so lucky. So you may want to reconsider your story. And I told him, absolutely not. I said that everything is going to be fine. We were just having lunch, and I thank you all for being concerned, and I thank you for serving. And he said, okay. And they left. But not once did I ever consider or think about calling the police, because I felt like the police it's just a report I'm going to make.
Absolutely.
You're not able to be with me every day, all the time. So after I do this, things are going to get worse.
Right.
So I wasn't prepared for the worst, because somewhere in my mind of dysfunction, I felt like I could nice my way out of it. And if I involve the police, then that's going to create a whole nother situation that I'm not technically, mentally, emotionally able to handle.
Yes.
And so, no, I never did.
Okay.
And so here I am. I'm at my mother's house, and the threats are still coming, but I pretty much put in a system. Whereas whenever I leave the house, because I only left to go to work, get my grandmother's house, and maybe the kids to school, maybe to get something to eat every now and then.
Okay.
And so I would have a system in place. If I don't make it there, I'll give you a call within 5 minutes. We're in a small town, so I can go anywhere in the town in less than 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
So if I'm not calling you when I get there, then something has happened in between me leaving here and to my destination.
Gotcha.
So I had that system in place. So anytime that didn't happen, they would call. So that particular day that I got kidnapped, I didn't make it to the hair salon. So my stylist called my mom and let her know that, hey, I missed my appointment, and that's not like me. So that's when they became worried. So here I am. We got past that, and it was just threats every day. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do this. And then it would go back to, I'm not going to hurt you. I love you. I just want us to get back together. I just want us to make it right. And mind you, before I left, and before it just escalated to the physical abuse, I did try to go to counseling.
Okay.
We went to 2 sessions. The first session, the counselor looked, and I knew the look on her face was like, this is going really bad. It's not going to work. And she just said, hopefully I'll see you next week. We came back the next week, and literally we didn't even make it through the entire session. She cut it off. She said, he's too irate. He doesn't want to listen, and you're not going to be able to reason with him. I don't think that this marriage is going to be able to survive.
Wow.
So obviously we didn't go back anymore after that. And I think it may have only, been a few months after that before things escalated to me being in my mom's house. I filed for divorce. He wouldn't sign the papers. And then one day he told me that he did. And he brought me a copy that he had left at my job, that he had gone by the attorney's office, and he signed the paperwork. In actuality, he picked up the divorce decree, signed it, made a copy, left that one for me, but he never took that copy back to the attorney's office.
Gotcha.
So around the time that I was going on vacation and for my birthday was the time that the 60 days for the divorce could have been finalized. So I called the attorney wondering why I had not gotten my divorce decree. Well, she said, because he hasn't come by to sign it. He came by to pick up a copy of it and said that he would be back, but he never made it back. I said, okay. She said, but he did change some things in the decree. All of the properties that you had deeded over to him, he deeded them back to you. I said, well, why would he do that? And why would no one notify me? And she said, I don't know. I thought it was something that you all discussed, because he said that you all had discussed it, and that would be, that was going to be fair to you. And I said, okay, at this point, I'm livid. So I called him, and I'm upset, obviously. And I said, well, you know what? long story short, no matter what the courts say, I will never, ever be your wife again. We are officially done.
Done.
And I hang up the phone, and he calls me back about 10 minutes later, and he has this solemn voice. Just like the person that I originally met.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you know what? I've taken you through a lot of things, and you have been nothing but good to me. It's like he went down memory lane. He started from the day he met me until he got married, to the surgeries, until how I prayed for him, how I nursed him back to health, how I had, he had 2 kids that were the same age as mine, how I treated them as if they were my own. And he just thanked me for everything that it had did. And I understand that, that you were trying to leave and get out because there was something else or somebody else you wanted, whichever way it was. And I should have just let you go.
Right.
And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. That's good. So he said, I tell you what, I'm not going to be able to stay here and be around and see you go on with your life and dating someone else. So I'm getting ready to leave town. Actually, I've already packed my things, and I'm just going to bring the divorce decree by there to you. I've already signed it. There is one thing in there that says I'm entitled to your retirement. I want to make sure that you fix this part because I don't want your retirement. I don't want anything. You worked hard. And I said, no, that's not in there because I created the divorce decree.
Right. So you knew exactly what was in there.
I knew exactly what was in there.
Right.
He said, no. He said on this line, it says that there that I'm entitled, in which if he had a fault, he could have been entitled to half of it.
Absolutely.
But I knew that he wasn't. So when he came by for what appeared to be him signing the divorce decree, he came in and my mom was in the kitchen area with me, and he and I were about, I don't know, just a few steps apart. We were in very close proximity.
Okay.
Because he wanted me to show me what the divorce decree was saying. So I looked down to read what it was that I thought that he was misunderstanding. And by the time that I got up to tell him, no, that's not what it said, he pulled a gun from his back pocket and shot me close range in the face.
Wow.
At that moment, the impact of the gunshot, because my mom was sitting over there and I heard her scream. But the impact from the gun, she said, my body, when it hit the floor, it lifted like 3 feet back off the floor. So she knew that I was dead. So as she screamed my name, he fired 2 shots where she was because she was close to the door. Now, mind you, my sister, my kids, and my 2 nieces are in the back of the house. So it's a little small house, but they're in the back of the house because she and I both were going through a divorce or whatever at the time. Well, she had already gotten divorced. So she was there and I was there, the kids were there. And so as I began to, I didn't even feel the gunshot. I did not feel me hitting the floor. All I heard was that still small voice that I had been hearing throughout that entire situation say to me, I got you, my daughter. And it was almost like the Lord had me in his arms and he laid me down. That was just how soft and just how easy and polite that chaotic situation was.
My God.
And I can remember laying there, and as he walked to the back of the house, because my sister was not as nice as I was in the situation. So I was really fearing for her because she had no fear. So they had words throughout the process. So I began to pray that that he doesn't hurt her. I didn't think he would hurt the kids. Because he loved them and he was still making sure whatever he could do for them that he was able to do, he did. So there was nothing, with them. But I knew that, okay, if she says the wrong thing,
then it's
going to go left.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So he goes back there and she tells me later that he was just not looking himself and he was mumbling. And so she said he just stood at the door and with his head down. And when the kids, she had placed them in the closet. So by this time, as kids are, you hear gunshots, you come out, you wonder what's going on, is it safe? So they open the door to come out the closet, and she's telling them to get back in the closet. And he speaks and he says, I'm not going to hurt them. I love them. I just want to, let them know I love them. And he came back into the area where I was, and I thought he realized that I wasn't dead because I could see my shirt, my heart beating so fast, and I could see it moving. So I thought that he saw it too. And he came back and he just stood over me and he said, I've lost the only person who ever loved me. I'm not going to jail. And he committed suicide.
At that
So
moment.
at that point, my sister comes from, I yell for her and tell her to get the kids out the house. And she gets the kids out the house. And after that, she began to, of course, call the ambulance. But it seemed like it took them forever. But I'm sure it wasn't forever.
Right.
But we got there, and she came back in the house. She said, the ambulance hasn't come, so you're going to have to help you get in the car. And so I began to try to help her by getting on my back legs, and she could, drag me out to the door to get me in the car. And as soon as we got to the threshold of the door, which is going to be a little complicated for the way things were in order for me to get in the car,
right,
a police officer came up that we have never been able to find to this day, because every officer that was on the scene was not the officer that she and I saw. And he said, "Give her to me." And I just believed that it was an angel. He got me,
God.
and by that time we started hearing the sirens. And they put me in the ambulance, but not one person's name, not one person who was employed at that police department have we been able to find the description that we know who the guy that we saw. It's like he doesn't exist, or he vanished out of thin air. And I have searched every year since that incident November 24th, 2004. And I just come to the realization last year that was just God's angel just coming to let us know that it was going to be all right. And it was. It took it. Obviously, I'm on this call, so I survived.
That's right. Yes, you did.
It didn't look like I was going to survive to my family, because just you taking a gunshot wound to the face, nobody knows if you're going to be to be damaged. And obviously, anybody that that has seen me, I don't look nothing nowhere near like what I have gone through. And I know that it was just God's hand on my life.
Yes.
That protected me, because I shouldn't have survived, because there were so many other instances and situations that were identical to mine where they didn't survive.
They were not that lucky.
So I know that
that's right.
No, they were not that lucky. He allowed me to survive. But even when my family didn't know that I was going to be okay, I always knew that I was going to be okay.
My Lord.
And so it was one of those life-changing moments where you realize that life can truly, you can truly be here today and gone tomorrow, because never in a million years did I think that I would have found myself in such a traumatic situation.
Yeah,
never. Never would I have thought that would have been me and my story.
And I, of course, every time I hear your story, I get chills all over my body. But as I'm sitting here in this studio, and I'm just thinking of that gospel song that I sing all the time. If it had not been for the Lord on your side,
yes,
where would you be at this moment in time? And I'm saying that God holds true to his word.
Yes,
that he never, ever leaves you nor forsake you. And that he had that angel that appeared like a police officer to take you in his arms to let you know that, Andrea, I got you. And I'm just sitting here, even as we segue into our last and final thoughts, I'm thinking about, I know my listeners are saying, and sitting there with their mouth open and saying, but God. And they can only imagine that there are many people, there are 25 people in Charlotte that can't give this story because they didn't make it, because they left this world by the hands of their abusers. But you, God kept you for a bigger purpose on this planet. And you do not look remotely like what you've gone through. And what I know for sure is that God gave you beauty for your ashes. And that his plan for you is so much bigger, my sister. But in order for him to get you to that bigger plan, you had to go through that process.
Yes, I
And there
did.
was no way around that process. But what I know is that you were able, in the midst of your storm, God brought back peace, love, and happiness through your
Yes, he
life.
did.
And he blessed you with an amazing husband, a
Yes, he
man
did.
of God that I've had the honor and the pleasure to work with for over 8 years. And I saw his light the same way that I saw yours. There was something different. And that difference
Wow.
was I saw God in you and Edwin before I ever knew you the way that I know you now. And I know that
Wow.
there are many women out there that are saying, could that ever happen for me? Because
Wow.
he gave you a loving heart of a loving husband to heal those very scars that was left in you from that previous relationship. And I know,
Yes, he did.
and I know that healing hearts come just from that, because you're now healing the hearts of many women out there and men that's out there.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, what would you say? Give us 3 things you would leave the listeners with. Those women that are saying to themselves that she can't leave, she can't get out, that love and happiness doesn't exist, that it was all her fault that she was abused. What would you tell these women that simply think that they can't get out? They can't go, and it's their lifelong mission to just suffer. What would you say to those women? Give me 3 things you would give to them.
Number one, know your worth and know your value. Regardless of whose fault it is, nobody, no one deserves to be physically or verbally, emotionally, financially abused. That's number one. Number two, find you an organization, a trusted organization that you feel comfortable with, and find somebody within that organization who can walk with you through the process. That's the mistake that I looking back, if I could have done something differently, that would have been one of the things that I would have done. Found an organization that could have helped me at least process mentally, because when you're under that amount of stress, you're not thinking properly. You're not thinking rationally or reasonably. You need another set of trusted eyes and ears in this situation so that they can create for you an exit strategy. I don't recommend doing what most do, is when they're getting ready to leave and they're in the heat of the moment, they leave right then. That puts you at harm's risk, and your survival rate is almost cut in half when you do that. But those organizations know how to create exit strategies so that you and your family can get out safely. The third thing that I would say is to know that you are not that situation. It happened, whether it was at your fault, their fault, nobody's fault, just generational, no matter whatever it was that started it. That's not the end of the story. You're still breathing and you're still living. You have the ability to create the ending to the story that you desire.
That's right.
And for me, the one thing that I did after that, I began to go through counseling to assess, how did I end up here? How did I attract these type of individuals? Because they were all the same. They just had different names and different forms of abuse that was attached to them. So I had to find out what was my issue. That took me some years to go through that process of finding out my issue. The root of my issue was that I had daddy issues.
That's right.
I needed that father figure in my life, and I was placing them in a role to be a father to me instead of a partner or a husband in that relationship. So what I expected from a father, I expected from them. That was for you to love me unconditionally. And that is not the case in relationships. So I placed too much responsibility on them for the lack or deficiency that I had in my life. So I had to address those things. Those things came in the process of, in my situation, because when I got remarried, this was someone that I had dated previously after high school. So he and I were good best friends throughout the process. And there were many times that he wanted to come in and say, you just need to leave the situation. But I couldn't. I needed to stand. I didn't need to run from that or put anybody else in harm's way.
That's right.
So when he came on the scene, I almost let him get away because, at this point, you don't recognize good. Everything, at this point is bad. In my eyes, like, I don't want another husband. I'm not getting remarried. I'm good. I'm fine. And, I can, take that path my mom took. No more husbands. That was it. One was enough for her.
That's right.
I'm done. And God began to speak to me as he began to heal and minister to me even before I got married, because my faith is, and the people that were around me in that ministry, they girded me. They helped me. They walked that journey with me.
Yes.
And so by the time I realized that this is what it was supposed to be, it was the best decision I ever could have made, because not only did he love me through those places and through that healing process, but not one time did he ever judge me. Not one time has he ever brought up the situation.
Yes.
And there were many times within our marriages, even in the first parts of our marriage, that I wasn't just, I was myself, but it was almost as if I carried so much of guilt about the situation. It was almost like I was trying to find everything I could to try to make something right that I didn't even make wrong.
Wow.
Because I was wrong for the infidelity, but I didn't bring a gun and I didn't pull the trigger.
That's right.
Because we all have choices to make. And all of us have found ourselves in some type of a situation where that it's not favorable and we wish we could do something different. But you have another decision you can make after the situation. I have a choice to leave. I can walk away, or I can forgive, and I can forgive and walk away. But none of it looks as if you get the right to take someone's life because they did something that you didn't feel was satisfactory, or you didn't feel it was respectful to you.
That's right. Wow. I tell you, this has been yet again such a moving and such a powerful podcast today. And I am truly hoping that every woman who's listening to this podcast simply know that there is life after the tragedies, and that you make the decision to take your pen back and rewrite your story, because your story doesn't have to end the way that it may appear right now, but you have the power to direct your ending to the movie in which you are walking in and living every day. Andrea, how can they connect with you on social media?
I'm on Facebook, Haynes Healing of Heart. I am on Instagram at Haynes Healing of Heart, or I am Andrea Haynes. And I also have a website for the foundation, www.hayneshealinghearts.org.
That's hayneshealinghearts.org. I tell you.
Correct.
So that was correct, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Wow. Well, my bold, beautiful, and unapologetic sisters, that's all for today's episode of Real Talk, Real Women. I want to thank you, the listeners, and I want to thank with all of my heart and all of my love, my amazing sister, Miss Andrea Haynes, for joining me today in sharing her truth. And I know that her truth has impacted someone, because even if it's just one individual, then our work and her journey was not in vain. And to my super duper co-host, my hot sauce, Miss Adrienne M. Johnson, I missed you today, but I want to thank you for believing in the vision and being my ride or die sister as we take this journey together to continue to equip, inspire, motivate, and empower the woman, her life, and her business. Ladies, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spreaker, iClouds, iHeart, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. Also, make sure you're following us on our social media platforms at Real Talk Real Women Podcast and on our personal platforms at Martha Cooper-Hudson and Adrian M. Johnson. But I want you to join us again next week as we continue to shine a spotlight on domestic violence and the children who endured the pain alongside their parents. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a wrap. It is a pleasure. And as always, make sure that you know that where you are right now is simply temporary, but it is never your permanent resting space, because you have the opportunity to get mad, make a decision to change your situation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a wrap. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us this week on Real Talk, Real Women. Make sure you visit www.marthacooperhudson.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, join our Facebook group at www.realtalkrealwomengroup.com.